On Tech News Today, the NSA hacks 100,000 computers, a new super secure Android phone, and a Mac Pro made with a real trash can. All that and more coming up.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
It's Wednesday, January 15th, 2014, and this is Tech News Today. Tech News Today is brought to you by RingCentral. We do everything in the cloud here at Twit, and that's why we love our cloud-based phone system by RingCentral. With zero startup costs, RingCentral is $20 a month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial. Buy one desk phone and get a second phone free, up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use our promo code TWIT. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT1. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Mike Yelgin.
I'm Sarah Lane.
There we go. I'm Jason Howell.
Let yourself be heard, Jason.
Right. Yes, right.
You can hear me now.
Tech News Today explores the top tech news in 30 minutes or less, and we're making a change here today. Normally we start with the top news, and we've heard from our viewers and listeners that you can get news just about anywhere. The news is easy to find, and what you really get from us the most is our analysis and our interpretation of the news and our exploration of the news. So we're going to try going without the top news, without the what used to be called the news fuse, and we're going to just go right into analysis, and it'll give us more time to do more analysis. So starting with that, we've got a whopper of a story today for you. The New York Times reported yesterday that the National Security Agency has implanted software in nearly 100,000 computers around the world that allows the U.S. to spy on those computers even when they're not connected to the internet. And we'll get to how they do that. This is a fascinating story because essentially little bits and pieces of this came out in December with revelations mostly in the German publication Der Spiegel. And there was also a Dutch publication that published some of this. And this is essentially the New York Times additional information that they gathered, and they kind of zipped it up into a more cohesive view of what the NSA has been up to for a few years, actually since about 2007, 2008. And it's quite a fascinating thing. Now normally we wouldn't go into so much detail about it, but today I'd like to just go and explain this because there's so many moving parts to this thing, and there's so much complex information. So the program is called Quantum. This is not to be confused with the quantum computer that we reported last week that the NSA is working on. That's an actual computer system. This is a program called Quantum, and it relies on an old-fashioned spy technology, radio waves, basically. And what it does, and how this works is that the NSA goes in and they have multiple ways to infiltrate systems. And in fact, as Der Spiegel reported in December, they actually have a catalog, a 50-page catalog of gadgets and technologies, including with prices. The NSA can go through this catalog and say, well, here's one way to infiltrate a certain thing. And just about every type of security you can imagine that has ever been devised, the NSA has in its catalog one or more ways to get around that security technology. And this is incredibly fascinating to me because of one of the ways that they do it is with something, there's basically two different ways for them to infiltrate a computer through radio waves. So one of them is called Cottonmouth. That's the code name for this, and their code names are fantastic. Love these code names. And it's a normal USB plug that plugs into a computer and transmits to a station up to 8 miles away. The station itself can fit into a briefcase, a large briefcase. The other one that's even more fascinating involves circuit boards that they actually install on computers. And sometimes they intercept these computers when they're being shipped from the manufacturer. They install it, and then the person gets what they think is a brand new unmodified computer. And even when that computer is disconnected from the internet, the NSA can still infiltrate it and exfiltrate it. In other words, they can put malware or other types of software on it, and they can actually get information off of it. But again, that part of it was reported in December. Now, just to get some of these code names straightened out, this program is called ANT. And the ANT program is essentially a division of the NSA that provides these technologies. ANT is basically the NSA's Q. If you remember from the James Bond series, James Bond needed some stuff to go into the field and spy and shoot people. And so he would go to Q, and Q would say, oh, here's a new pen that explodes, and here's a wristwatch with a laser beam, and that kind of stuff. Well, this is the NSA's Q. And it's not just a dude in a lab coat with a dozen or two really cool things. This is a 50-page catalog, as I said, with enormous numbers of devices. So, you know, this whole program is associated with the Iranian malware attack of Stuxnet. That's how they got it in there. They infiltrated the computer. This is associated with the dropout Jeep thing we heard about that for infiltrating iPhones specifically. It's really, really a fascinating story. And I think that one of the most important things for people who are listening to this story and hearing you, you're going to hear people talking about this all day today, is that this is a very different story from the NSA revelations that we've been super concerned about recently.
Why? Why is it so different?
It's different.
I mean, isn't the story that that people are being spied on?
The story. The difference is who's being spied on. So this sort of thing that the quantum program does is old-fashioned spycraft. Essentially, I mean, for decades, for probably centuries, this kind of thing has been going on throughout the entire 20th century. Back during the Cold War, the Soviet Union, the United States, and other major powers had radio-based spying things. One time, the United States Embassy in Moscow had to disassemble the entire embassy because they realized that the bricks that were used to build the embassy contained listening devices. So this is the kind of thing where the NSA identifies the bad guys, which in this case is mostly the Chinese military. It's terrorists. It's in Mexico. It's both the drug cartels and also the Mexican police. Miscellaneous groups of organizations that the United States considers threats. And so, once those bad guys have been identified, they're spying on them. This has been going on since the beginning of time. Now they're just using computers. The disturbing revelations recently have been the NSA spying on us, not them, us, the U.S. In other words, harvesting, going through social networks and listening to phone calls, recording metadata, all that is designed to find out who the bad guy. They want to know if you're a bad guy. And that's an entirely different thing because, for starters, the United States citizens have constitutional rights that specifically prohibit, these kinds of Easter egg hunts for, to determine wrongdoing and things like that. And it's also the scale of it, the application of big data to this, and that's really the difference. So, I think it's basic arguments for this are that the biggest problem I see is that these revelations, not just the revelations, but the existing things. These things are going to be found out one way or the other, but they take away two things we need for security. I mean, these things exist for security, right? So they take away allies. Because one of the things we learned is that we're spying on our allies.
They don't really like that.
The NSA is spying on Saudi Arabia, which is an ally, Pakistan, which is theoretically an ally, and other allies. We already learned that apparently Angela Merkel's personal phone was sort of hacked by the NSA. So we need allies if we want to be secure, and this doesn't help us with our ally situation. We also need money. And money comes from the economic activity of American citizens and American companies. And now that we're learning that most of the devices and products that have been infiltrated through this program are American products. Now, they've also infiltrated foreign products, including Chinese products. In fact, the NSA has done exactly what the U.S. has accused the Chinese government of doing with Huawei's devices and so on. And turns out we're doing it too. And so I think this is really bad for Silicon Valley and for companies in the U.S. who who manufacture hard drives.
Well, if they don't have control over something that I buy, let's say I buy a new laptop online, and I think it's coming straight to me from whatever plant it was made in, but actually it's going to some government organization first who's putting something inside it. I feel very out of control in that sense. And the businesses who put all the money and time and effort and marketing into making that product also suffer. Yeah. Because we can no longer trust them because we realize that it's out of their hands.
That's right. That's exactly right. I think that the the fear and uncertainty and the kind of assumption that all this stuff is happening to me, it could be happening to me, is really, really bad for this whole situation. I think it also has to be said that the United States for a couple of years has been pointing its finger at the Chinese government and saying, you guys are putting essentially accusing them of doing exactly what we're doing. And the Snowden revelations happened, I think, 1 or 2 or 3 days before President Obama was going to go to China and start lecturing the Chinese leadership on their hacking activities. And the revelations just completely took the wind out, and every new revelation just takes away the United States' upper hand that it used to claim in this whole issue. So this is a fascinating story, and we're going to be watching it. One of the best things about it, and we'll move on to the next story next. There's a very complicated story, but one of the best things about it, I'm a word guy, and I love the code names that they come up with. So the NSA has a product called Candygram, which can mimic the GSM cell tower of a large network. And so a person thinks they're connecting to a cell tower, but they're actually connecting to their friends at the NSA. There's another one called Surly Spawn that uses radio frequencies to communicate with keystrokes even from as far away as across the street, and it doesn't require anything to be installed. It's a keylogger that can be done from across the street. Another one is called Angry Neighbor, which can track objects in rooms, listen in, and check out what's displayed on computer monitors. So this is really fascinating. And we have a comment from Curtis B. in the chat room who said that it could move a lot of the manufacturing and R&D offshore, which would be really bad for the economy. And I think that's exactly what the threat is. And this is probably a great thing for companies in other countries who are competing currently against U.S. companies. Well, if somebody's really worried, Sarah, about being hacked, maybe there's one thing they can do with a new phone that's coming out.
Yeah, actually today, Spain's Geeks Phone and Washington-based Silent Circle launched a secure Android smartphone. They're calling it the Black Phone. It's a carrier and vendor-independent smartphone that's supposed to give people and businesses the ability to be more secure when they're making phone calls, when they're exchanging texts, when they're transferring or storing files, even video chat, more securely than any other phone. It's powered by a security-oriented Android build named Private OS. And there's some big names behind it. Phil Zimmerman, he's the creator of PGP. Javier Aguirre, who's the co-founder of Geeks Phone. John Callis, co-founder of PGP and CTO of Silent Circle. You've got Mike Janke, who's the CEO of Silent Circle and former U.S. Navy SEAL. They all say this is something that we need. Now, it's going to be unveiled at Mobile World Congress, which is taking place in Barcelona on February 24th, next month. The company says at that point they'll start taking pre-orders, although we don't have an official ship date or a price announced. Now, I'm not an Android user, but we certainly cover Android a lot on this show and the Twit Network. And I guess my first question is, does Android, has it been presented as so insecure that something like this is necessary? And doesn't that work against the fragmentation that everybody accuses Android of having too much of already? I mean, if you're selling, it's like, do you want a regular phone or do you want a secure Android smartphone? Right. It's sort of like regular or extra strength. I mean, why wouldn't all of these Android phones have the same security? Well,
the details about this particular phone are have not been revealed exactly, and we tried to contact them to get on the show this morning, and they said, we're not talking to anybody until Mobile World Congress, which tells me that they haven't actually come to an agreement internally on exactly what the technologies are and what and how they'll work. This uses a forked version of Android called Private OS, which I've never heard of before this morning, but it sounds like something they're developing. And the problem is not just on the phone itself. The problem is what happens when you communicate with another person or when somebody can get access to your device. So Android phones are only as secure as somebody makes them. And so in order to make a phone secure, they're claiming that they're going to be anonymizing all activity through a VPN on the phone. And they're using processors and software and the special version of the OS, all working in concert in order to make sure that there are no holes in the system, essentially, especially when you're communicating. Now, the weird thing about this, I think, that makes it less likely to be a commercial success, is in order for secure communication to take place, you basically need one of these phones on both ends. And so that's one problem. The other problem with this is that, you know, it's like just using a phone like this is probably going to get you more scrutiny than just using a regular phone.
Well, but that's like saying if you're using LastPass, then maybe you've got something to hide in there. I mean, I don't think anybody can be faulted for wanting to be as secure as possible. But I see what you're saying. Early adopters, people who are going up and signing up for the pre-orders at in Barcelona next month. Yeah, they're going to end up on some list of people to watch more closely because they're obviously saying secret stuff.
Absolutely, and I think again a distinction needs to be made between. You know, a lot of us are very unhappy about what's happening with security and privacy, whether it's, you know, Google/Apple type of invasions of privacy, or whether it's the NSA, or whether it's, you know, what the police are doing or whatever. So we may be opposed to many of these things that are going on. And buying a phone like this isn't an effective way to protest. It might be nice. It might give you peace of mind. And I kind of like the idea of having a phone simply because I don't know who's listening. Could be just about anybody in my personal conversations, stuff like that. But this isn't an effective way to protest. We need to protest. You know, people need to protest politically, or, you know, in social media, and oppose the kinds of politicians who are in favor of this sort of thing. And so those are two very separate things. Chances are most of us are not necessarily being spied upon. I guess it does, to a certain extent, thwart the sort of you know, the invasion of privacy for commercial activity, you know, sort of offer up contextual ads. Well, we're going to be talking to Leander Kani of Cult of Mac in just a second, and we're going to be talking about Apple in China. But before we do that, I want to talk about RingCentral, one of our sponsors today. And when the Twit studios were built, everything was done in the cloud. This is an extraordinarily cloud-based organization, as I've discovered since I've been here. And you know, Twit stores documents and holds meetings. Even all the notes and everything that we do for TNT are all done in the cloud. And so the idea of getting a PBX phone system just didn't mesh with what the company was doing. So that's why Twit embraced RingCentral. It has zero startup costs, no PBX hardware to install or maintain, and allows us to easily customize all of our call handling. The producers here at Twit love getting their voicemail through their email, and they can even get faxes for the people who still send faxes. RingCentral also gives customers their own auto receptionist, so you can greet your callers and announce employees and department extensions. It's a fantastic product. It's a modern version of the phone system because it's all in the cloud. RingCentral offers an all-inclusive price, which is as low as $20 per month per user, and you can start right now with a 30-day risk-free trial. They even have a special offer for TNT fans. When you buy one desk phone, you get a second phone free for up to 20 phones. So call 800-543-9980. That's 800-543-9980. Or you can go to ringcentral.com and use the promo code TWIT. We thank RingCentral for their support of tech news today. Well, Apple CEO Tim Cook told the Wall Street Journal that he's incredibly optimistic, in other words, planning to make tons of money, about his company's future with China Mobile. The carrier starts selling iPhones on Friday after years of apparently grueling negotiations where the two companies just simply couldn't come to an agreement. But the chairman of China Mobile said that millions of iPhones have already been pre-ordered by China Mobile customers. Well, joining us to talk about this story is Leander Kani, publisher of Cult of Mac and Cult of Android, two blogs which I, by the way, contribute to, and the author of 4 books about Apple, the most recent of which is titled Johnny Ive, the Genius Behind Apple's Greatest Products. Welcome, Leander.
Hey, Mike. Hey, thanks.
So why is China, other than the obvious fact that China has lots of people who apparently buy lots of phones, why is China so important to Apple?
I think it's really their third largest market, and it could be possibly their biggest market, especially with this China Mobile deal. This was the big sort of missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle. And China, I think, is so potentially huge. It's got a really rapidly expanding middle class. And in the next, 10, 20 years, it's going to become such a gigantic economy that this is such a huge, opportunity for them to get started there.
I heard an astonishing prediction today, which is that in China this year, the rate of sales will be 23 million smartphones sold each month on average. 23 million per month.
I think that's, how much does Apple sell in each quarter? Like 30 million, I think, in the US and Europe. So yeah, it's, I don't think people have really grasped how big an economy China can be. I just was looking at statistics before coming on the show, and it said that China already accounts for 1/3 of global luxury goods sales. So high-end bags, shoes, jewelry, watches, cars, already 1/3 of it comes from China. That's domestically and overseas.
And the iPhone is definitely a luxury item in China. I believe that the 16 gigabyte iPhone 5S costs $874 in China, and this is in a country where the average cell phone price is about $100.
Yeah, and I was looking at a lot of the analysis in some of the reports about the deal today, and all the analysts are chipping in and saying, pointing this out, that you can get a low-end smartphone or a low-end Android phone for a fraction of what it would cost to get an iPhone. But Apple isn't competing in that market. They don't want to go after those low-end smartphones. They want an Apple iPhone is a branded luxury item. And the funny thing, the ironic thing about the Chinese economy at the moment is that Chinese consumers don't want knockoffs.
Right.
They want the genuine item, and this is it's a status item, and I have no doubt that they will sell as many as they can make.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point, Leander, that the existence of so many knockoffs in China has made the real thing a super luxury item and a real point of bragging rights and so on. Well, Leander, thank you for joining us for this segment. You can find Leander at Cult of Mac, Cult of Android, and you can see his analysis on those blogs. And you can also pick up his book, Johnny Ive. I've read it. It's a fantastic book. It's literally one of the best books about Apple that I've ever read. Tons of new detail that I've never heard before. So that's a fantastic book. Leander, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks.
Well, a truckie from the chat room asked us, well, why isn't India as or more important as China for a U.S. phone maker? Sarah, what does HP think about?
I'm glad you
India?
asked. HP is back. The company's re-entered the smartphone market with 2 Android phablets. Yes, I'm calling them phablets. I don't make the rules, people. That's just what they are. But this time it's for the Indian market. One is the HP Slate 6 voice tab. Great name, HP. And one is the HP Slate 7 voice tab. Okay, 6 versus 7. Got it. Ron Coughlin, who's the VP for the consumer PC business, tells Recode.net that HP chose India specifically, not North America, not Europe, to debut the devices because of market preferences and because the market for phones and smart devices in India is growing so quickly. Now, of course, well, maybe not of course, but I'll tell you, HP CEO Meg Whitman said back in September, HP had to do a smartphone. It's something that the company feels it has to do, even though it's still a large PC maker. And in fact, it's the #1 PC maker in India.
Yeah, isn't it interesting?
It is interesting, but the PC market is, I don't think we're in a post-PC world yet, but it is on decline worldwide. Phablets, of course, if you're not familiar with the concept, they're basically just larger smartphones. They work like a phone. You can make calls and do all of those things, but it's a smaller form factor than a traditional tablet. Somewhere in the middle. What's cool is that in India already, HP's got quite a bit of competition, and HP has a knack for coming in late to the market with stuff. Right now, Samsung has the most smartphone market share, just over 15%. Nokia's #2 with just under 15%. You've got a couple local brands, Micromax and Carbon, that have 10%, 9% of the market respectively. This is all coming from IDC market research numbers. Of course, Lenovo and Huawei, both Chinese manufacturers, are also in the mix. So, HP it's a big brand in India, but considering that other brands, you've got kind of a nice array. Samsung is the #1, but at 15%, it's not a runaway leader.
Sure.
So you've got sort of this nice pie where everybody's getting a pretty healthy slice of it. Where does HP come in?
Sounds like they've done some good research. They've done a lot of market research there, and they've noticed that the fastest growing category in India is the phablet category, which is kind of an unusual thing. India is one of the few countries where that's the case. And I think one of the reasons is that a lot of people there want a tablet and phone in the same device. They're not getting two devices.
Sure.
And so if you're going to do that, phablet's the way to go. You know, HP has always made really bad decisions about smartphones. They've really messed up multiple opportunities. For example, when the smartphone industry was very young, they acquired Compaq. If you remember, in I think it was the 90s or early 2000s, I don't remember when that was exactly, but they acquired Compaq, and as part of the negotiations, they promised to go with the iPac instead of their own Jornada. The Jornada was a better phone, but they went with, in my opinion, but they went with the iPac, and that phone basically went nowhere. And then they acquired Palm. They had what I thought was a fantastically rich with potential phone platform with the web OS, and they could have had a bona fide alternative to the iOS and to Android phones. And they just kind of walked away from it and dropping it in 2011. And now they're back with an Android phone. I don't think there's anything wrong with them having an Android phone. I just think it was a mistake to drop Palm. I really think that should have been more than just an operating system for Lenovo TV or LG TVs. So, you know, so they've made a lot of mistakes. This seems like a good plan. I think they want to start in India. It's a giant phone with mid-range specs. It should play very well in India. And then hopefully they can develop the line, go international, and you know, maybe by this time next year we'll be talking about phablets for the United States and European markets. Well, HP.
Maybe, but these are also somewhat saturated markets, right? I mean, India is, you could say, is not so much behind the tablet market, but IDC, again, to give you another number, they lowered their worldwide sales forecast for traditional tablets by 6 million units because of phablets specifically eating into market share. And that's globally. That's not just in India. So it's interesting, and I think you make a really good point that if you're going to have just the one device that's mobile and you can do pretty much all you want to do and there's apps and that sort of thing, for many people, the smaller the better. But not too small, because then it's not quite a tablet either.
That's right. Well, we're going to hear about a very innovative Mac Pro mod in just a second, but first let me tell you about Squarespace. This episode is also sponsored by Squarespace, my favorite all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. Been using it for a long time. I really love everything about it. When you see a Squarespace site, it's almost always really beautifully designed because they have a gazillion beautiful templates that are really, really nicely designed. What's really interesting for those who don't use Squarespace at present is that when you go into the tools and all that stuff is really well designed too. When you go into the back end and you're building a blog or a website, it's really nice to use. The design and the typography, it's like a consumer product, even though you're in the back end guts working on your site. Super easy to use, and if you have any difficulties, their tech support is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it starts at just $8 a month. And includes a free domain name if you sign up for a year. It's mobile ready. So we live in a mobile era nowadays, and so your website has to be well designed for mobile devices or people are just going to get upset with you. So Squarespace makes that all happen automatically. You just build your site and they will make it mobile friendly. They also have a Squarespace metric app for iPhone and iPad, which lets you check site stats like page views, unique visitors, social media follows, and that sort of thing. And then they have a blog app where you can make updates, tap and drag images to change layouts, and monitor comments on the go, which I really appreciate. You want to be timely with your moderation of comments, and the ability to do that from a mobile device is really great. Squarespace, of course, takes care of hosting, so you don't have to deal with it. Start a free 2-week trial with no credit card required and start building your website today. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure you use the offer code TNT1 to get 10% off and also to show your support for Tech News Today. We thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. Squarespace, it's everything you need to create an exceptional website. Well, Sarah, Mac Pro, what do you think? Somebody modified one, and how'd they do?
The new Mac Pro is certainly impressive. It's certainly expensive. And if we're all being honest, it looks a little bit like a trash can. So a guy in Germany decided to take it just a step further and build a Hackintosh out of a trash can. a trash can that conveniently looks a lot like the Mac Pro already, but still, look at this beautiful Mac Pro, or something sort of like it, built from an authentic lunar bathroom trash can that comes with its own mashing toilet brush, people. Not the real deal, but I say E for effort. Or is that A for effort? I don't know.
But it has an Apple logo on it, so it must be the real deal,
Sure.
right?
I love it. Well, it's certainly more colorful. I like the fact that now I've got more options. We all know that trash cans are they're not just a place to put your waste, but they are a fashion statement in any room.
And best of all, the Mac Pro case that he removed from it can actually be used as a trash can. So he's not even out a trash can. So that's our show today. Thank you for joining us. Make sure you share your tips, leaks, inside information, and feedback by email at tnt@twit.tv or call 260-TNT-SHOW and leave a message for us. Also, upvote the stories you'd like to see us cover on our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com and visit our Tech News Today Google Plus community. You'll find our website at twit.tv/TNT. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.